alongside Garrett Rothkin. I'm calm now. I'm calm. I've got it out of my system. I'm happy that Gators fans came with receipts. That's fine. Yeah. I wanted to open the dialogue. And, a lot of people it's a rivalry, let them do what they want. No. History matters.
Yes.
Okay? You can't tell me that Herbert Hoover was a better president than Teddy Roosevelt because it's not true. And you can't tell me anybody was a better president than Teddy Roosevelt because he was the GOAT. The GOAT. The best. If we could reincarnate him and throw him back in the race now, you'd understand what I'm talking about. Come for the rants. Stay for the political and U.S. history knowledge.
Yes.
But there are several big jobs that have opened up. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start with UCF because that dovetails nicely with what I was just ranting about. Gus Malzahn did what Chip Kelly did a year ago, and he has resigned a big-time head coaching job to take a big-time offensive coordinator job at a more historic program.
Correct.
I don't want to say better. I think better is in the eye of the beholder.
I think historic's the best way to put it.
But historically better program.
Correct. On the field, yes.
On the field, and I think I've not seen one UCF fan mad about it.
No, a lot of them wanted him gone anyway.
I think they just I think he had kind of reached, and it's clear, very similar to what Chip Kelly,
yeah.
If you just want to coach ball, then you got to be a coordinator. Occasionally you can get in, you can recruit, and the NIL stuff gets in there, but you really can just be well, here, call this guy.
Also think it's good for Gus, being his age and everything, just take some of that stress off. You have little more time to work with your family and focus on what you enjoy instead of having to constantly be out there and recruiting your own roster and everything. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the move for him. It makes sense. And plus, he's been a good head coach, but he was a damn good offensive coordinator. Yeah, so watching him get back to his thing.
And look, Florida State has not been able to consistently run the ball. Gus Malzahn's one of the best coaches in the country when it comes to running the ball. Mm-hmm. And, that's where I see, getting in they're going to get in the mix for a transfer quarterback of who, for the most part, we don't know who that's going to be yet.
Right.
We've seen that there's a couple. There's nobody
that seems to fit that mold.
That's gonna shake,
at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment. There's nobody at the moment who's shaking things up.
Correct.
There will be.
Yes.
There will be. I think the two names I'm watching the most are Noah Fafita and John Mateer. I think those two will shake things up the most. Miller Moss is in there, and
I don't think he's a good fit for them.
No, I think Miller Moss needs to go to a team. I think he needs to be on the Power 4 level. But I think Miller Moss needs to go to a Vanderbilt or something like that. I think that if Pavia loses his appeal and all that. So, which we'll see. But they went and got – so Florida State went and hired Gus Malzahn, which offensive line – that's not been the problem at UCF. Defensive consistency. Mike Bianchi from the Orlando Sentinel wrote yesterday about him that where he looks to have messed up is most UCF fans saw 6-7 first year of Big 12 as a success because it's hey, this is the first year in the Power Conference. There's a lot more, it's a lot different. 6-7, getting to a bowl game, rallying back from being, having to deal with John Rice Plumlee's injury and getting that back in and getting to a bowl game was a good first year. But Gus Malzahn, this is a guy who's been to national championship games as a coordinator and a head coach. He did not see it as a good – he saw it as, we didn't do enough.
Right.
He didn't see it as a stepping stone. He saw it as, oh, man, I got to change everything. So I'm going to bring in Ted Roof, and I'm going to take the play calling back over. Even though I haven't been doing that, I still think he can be a great play caller. But without, I'm play calling and I'm head coaching, and – we're bringing in 40, 50 transfers, and we're flipping this whole roster. And none of that really was what they needed to necessarily do. They needed to, find their strengths and build on it. And a lot of it they had in-house already.
Yeah.
And just didn't, because you restructure the whole thing, you wind up going 4-8 And if not by the grace of Oklahoma State, you would have had the worst year in the conference.
And they also consistently regressed at quarterback play.
Yeah.
While Gabriel was there and everything, nobody could ever really stay healthy. Like Gabriel got banged up. John Rice Plumlee constantly battled injuries. And then once both of them were gone, you thought, I know me and you felt like getting KJ Jefferson would have been the ideal fit. Unfortunately, he was washed up with what he did I think he maxed out everything at Arkansas in that final year he had there where he looked bad was kind of like just who he was. And we weren't really ready to accept. I know I wasn't really ready to accept that. I thought he would go and kind of rebound over there. But I think kind of all of that, but definitely missing on the portal in the quarterback position. Like you mentioned, that just bringing in Ted Roof, I don't think that ever really worked. It's really just the quarterbacks and the inconsistency on defense kind of dealt Gus Malzahn a blow. I think he can eventually, if he wanted to, get back in and be a good head coach, but I think that's kind of the right move for him, honestly. And I think it's going to be intriguing to see what he could do. And you also saw, with this move, multiple players start hitting the portal from UCF. So, you got to figure out, as they're bringing in their coach, what are you looking for? He's going to have a lot to do. Whoever you bring in is going to have to reshape this roster and bring in the right type of fits through the portal and everything. So that's just something to keep an eye on there with people and recruits starting to bail out with Malzahn headed to Tallahassee.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another big thing. And then just today, it's not official yet, but it's about to be.
That way.
Tony White, defensive coordinator at Nebraska, who is excellent. He was at Syracuse, now he's in Nebraska. He'll be a head coach in another year or two. And he's also probably bringing pot roast Terrence Knighton with him. He's leaving Matt Rule's staff and is on his way to be the defensive coordinator at Florida State. So Gus Malzahn and Tony White, hello, beautiful.
So this is something you've been talking about for a couple of weeks. You had to go big.
Go big. You have to go big. He could not. Now, Gus Malzahn is he's actually in Gus's.
Yeah.
He's in Gus's tree.
Yeah.
Gus is not in his tree. He was a GA for Gus. But you've got to go big. And Gus, his offense is based off of Gus's system. Mm-hmm. So what better person to come in and fix it than Gus?
Right.
Because Gus's system works, and Gus is innovative, and Gus is always changing up things. He's always out in front. He's not like a Jimbo Fisher who's like, look, this offense works.
Yeah, just make it work.
It worked. In 2007, it worked. It worked in 2013. I don't know what we're talking about. In 2022, it doesn't work, Jimbo. Mm-hmm. No, it will. It'll come back around.
Yeah.
Believe me, people are going to be into this. But Gus is innovative, and then – what do you need to do to get your intensity back on defense? Go get the dude. That's the dude. Mm-hmm. And one of the other candidates was the SMU defensive coordinator, who I think is very, very good. And SMU is going to have to fight to keep him with Rhett Lashley. But ultimately, they made what I think. Getting Tony White, who helped change Nebraska's attitude. I think it's a big loss for Nebraska, not one that I think Matt Rule can't overcome, because what he'll do is he'll go find Tony White 2.0.
Correct.
That's what they'll do. So I'm thrilled. I didn't even think that could have been the name. And Tony White's name in any of the hot boards, maybe I saw one of they should probably give Tony White a call.
Yeah, but it was nothing
didn't even occur to me on the list I made. I didn't think Gus, first of all, I don't think Gus Malzahn was getting fired. And we're all kind of off about the whole coaching cycle a little bit. There's not a ton of jobs open, but I do think some programs said, look, we can't just spin it neutral here. UCF now, even though I don't think they were going to fire Gus because they didn't want to pay the buyout, they might have fired him next year if it continued. Right. They kind of got done a favor here, and they can get into the market for, somebody big, like a John Sumrall or whoever, right? And North Carolina, Mac Brown gets fired. Mm-hmm. That's a huge one. That's a huge job, a huge potential job that has not hit its potential in a very long time. North Carolina has not won the ACC since, I think, the early 80s. Mm-hmm. They've not won it. So that's kind of a sleeping giant program if they got that right, given the resources and the recruiting base they have. To me, that's where I think they should hire Jamie Chadwell. But, we'll see what happens and where they go. And then, of course, Big 12-wise, West Virginia, I get not wanting to pay a buyout and a house settlement, but Neil Brown's done all he can do.
Yeah, he hit his wall there.
They were not going to, especially after everybody should be having fun in spite of us winning or losing.
That was the coffin, the nail in the coffin, dude.
Ren Baker and the administration was not going to be able to sell that. We don't know about revenue sharing and this and buyouts. That would have been we don't care, figure it out. No, it's not fun to, we have fun before the game.
Right.
We don't have fun at the game. So we can do the before the game thing anytime. We would like to have fun at the game.
Yep.
And that's the thing I do not think he was going to be able to sell coming back, from that. And they should have some interesting candidates in that one. I would call up Jason Candle at Toledo. I think that would be a great. I think
my first thought was Barry Odom.
I think Barry Odom would be great.
He was
Jeff Munkin. I have top fives on this week. You can see them all. And hopefully by Wednesday when the UNC one will run, no one will have picked a coach yet.
Right.
But UCF, I think I don't even think they really caught that flat-footed. I think they're like, oh, great, good deal.
Yeah, that was just one where to me it caught me off guard because I knew that things were kind of were touch and go there to say the least. That some people wanted Gus out. It kind of felt like it was coming to an end. I thought he would make it through at least one more year. But no, that one was the one that caught me off guard the most. I really wasn't surprised by the Neil Brown move or Mac Brown. I kind of felt like both of them, that this was their last year. And on the North Carolina front, this is something I was thinking about. Now, I know, is there any pressure there football-wise the way there is basketball from Duke? Because Duke is –
No, I think
because they've had success in football the past couple of years that North Carolina hasn't. And then Manny Diaz is a damn good coach that should be there for a minute.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there was anything that played into that on the football wise. I'm not that familiar with the how that rivalry goes.
I don't think that they're that worried about it. Right. I mean they're North Carolina though really needs to start winning in football.
Well, especially if they were pounding their chest we're going to be the ones taking, and the Big Ten would want us and everything. And it's okay, but
they don't. North Carolina, to me, is kind of even to a lesser degree because they haven't been as successful, but the A&M of the
Carolinas.
Yeah, no reason not to be good at everything. Everything. Mm-hmm. You are a big enough school, you have the resources, you should be good at everything.
Correct.
And they're just not. And A&M is good at football, they're just not great. A&M's problem is they're good at football, they're great at baseball right now, they're great at almost everything. Women's basketball, the women's sports, softball, those are mostly just fantastic all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Track and field, great. Tennis, great. You name a sport, A&M is in the upper echelon of most of them. It's football, which is the only one they care about, the 100%, is the one where they're just slightly above mediocre. They're good, they're not great, and they haven't really ever been great. So, at least not in the modern era.
Right.
So, North Carolina is that same way. They've had a few good years, but they've never had a great season in football. They just haven't, and there's no reason for them to not be fantastic at everything. Look, it was killing Texas for a while to not be great at everything, and now we'll see about basketball, but basketball should be okay. Mm-hmm. But they're still they're at the top of their leagues in pretty much everything. Right. Although baseball, I know, was a big disappointment. But Schlossnagel's there now, and they'll win. So, yeah, that's not that's the thing about North Carolina. Okay. That really is. They just need to be. They should be better.
All right, theoretically, let's do that. Let's play that since that's the cool thing. Yeah. If you were offered all three of those jobs, which one would you take first? What would your order be in those three jobs?
North Carolina, UCF, West Virginia.
Okay.
North Carolina, UCF, West Virginia. UCF has potential. North Carolina, I would just want to be look, here's the thing. SMU is probably going to win the ACC. I think that they will handle Clemson. I really do. I think they're a much more complete team. And Clemson has lost to every good team they've played this year.
Yes.
They lost to Georgia and South Carolina and Louisville. Mm-hmm. Those are the 3 good teams they've played. They've lost to all of them. And Louisville's not even that good, but like they're the 3rd best team they played. They lost to them. And they should have lost to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I don't think Clemson's bad. I just don't think they're that great. And SMU's good, legitimately good on both sides of the ball. They're well-rounded and good. They can win playoff games. They absolutely can. Mm-hmm. Can they win a national title? I don't know.
No.
I don't know who can, really. Like, I really don't know out of this year who can. Like,
it's going to be fascinating.
Oregon's the only team I feel confident saying, like, if you had to tell me pick at least one team that will be in the last game, I would say Oregon. And even then, I'm not 100, like, right. I'm not super confident because there's nobody that's great right now.
Yep.
There's nobody that's great. So we'll see. Like, and again, we'll see how SMU does. SMU's also had the benefit of, the best team that they were supposed to play was total garbage. That was their big thing on the schedule, but they did look. They only lost to BYU, right? Mm-hmm. They're undefeated in the conference. They took on all comers and beat most of them handily.
Yep.
So I mean, all right. So if I'm taking the job in the AUC with the power conference, if I wanted to figure the one like which is the one I could win the conference title the quickest,
right.
The Big 12 is not the one I'm picking.
No,
I'm not picking the Big 12. Now, if I want to say, hey, if I do well at a place, can this be my job? Like where this is the greatest coach in the history of UCF? Yeah. Like that's one that's a thing for me. West Virginia, not a bad job, but like I still think a great job. But for me personally, like that's it. But North Carolina, I'm going, okay, so that takes UCF and West Virginia out of that question you asked me. Mm-hmm. North Carolina, what do I have to do? Worry about Clemson, who won't completely adapt to the times? SMU, who, is kind of hanging around? What's going on at Florida State? Like, I shouldn't be that scared of NC State or Duke or Georgia Tech. Like, they're all about the same level as me, Syracuse. Like, okay, if I get the fact that they didn't play for a conference title with Drake May is unreal.
It's ridiculous.
So if I can get a Drake May or two in here, if I can get the players, I mean, Julius Peppers was there. Dre Bly, they've had some great football players at North Carolina. Lawrence Taylor played at North Carolina. Like, you can get the superstars there. It's a great campus, a great sports atmosphere. The fans will go nuts. Mm-hmm. All right?
That's the thing is, like, all 3 of those jobs have elite fan bases. Like,
yeah,
really
elite
good fan bases.
Look, and here's the other thing is, as a football coach, I know as long as the basketball team's doing well, I can have a couple of down years. I can have a year where, we had injuries and graduation, so I've got some room to rebuild. As opposed to if I take the Ohio State job, should that come open, like I have to beat Michigan every single year.
Yeah.
And if I lose to them, it better be the ref's fault. And then, like, what's we went 9-3 this year, let's try to figure this out. It's like, no. You don't get to figure it out.
No.
It should be figured out, and you should have already known where you went wrong, and you should have corrected it the minute you got the 3rd loss.
Right.
Like, there's your window of getting it right. North Carolina provides you a ton of opportunity to get it right, have a little wiggle room and some grace with the fan base, because as soon as football season's over, they're totally focused on basketball, and you can work in the shadows a little bit.
That makes sense.
As opposed to some of these other jobs, you're not working in the shadows ever.
No.
West Virginia would probably vault UCF in that regard because you can maybe work in the shadows a little bit, but here's the difference between West Virginia and the other 2 that you asked about. They love basketball and football equally.
Correct.
That's why they're an elite fan base. They don't just – it's not like Kentucky or North Carolina or Kansas where there's a drop-off, right? West Virginia –
they're like Iowa State. Like, they are there.
Iowa State, like, they are – there's not I'm more of a basketball fan than a football fan. I don't care. Like, no. I'm a fan of West Virginia. I'm a fan of Iowa State. If it's football, if it's basketball, if it's baseball, if it's tiddlywinks, if it's Quidditch, I'm going for that team.
Yep.
I am all in for them. I care this much. That's rare.
Yeah.
That's rare. And so they have that. So you can't really, you might be able to at least, especially if basketball does well right now, you might have a little window. The new coach will have a little window where, there's a new basketball coach. He can kind of, DeVries can kind of, maybe cover up some of the okay, I'm going to freeze off some of these warts here where nobody will notice. No. North Carolina, you can do that.
Yeah.
The minute the football season, so actually before football season's even over, North Carolina's playing Kansas and Kentucky and whoever the hell else.
Right.
And in the Bahamas or wherever they go, and the fans are locked in that day. And if the football team is just say 8-4 that year, they're like, well, it was a good year. We just need a better quarterback, or we had some injuries in the secondary and couldn't stop the pass, but you know what? The basketball team's going to be in the Elite Eight,
exactly.
so I'm all right. I'm good. Yeah,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. I think for me, I would probably go West Virginia just because I feel like they have the more, I don't know. They seem like they have more tradition with their football program. I think that's a low-key, going back with the fan base, you're going to have the support there. I think Red Baker would be a badass athletic director to work for. I think you could recruit. Recruiting is more difficult up there, but if you're able to get into the Northeast and get some cats out of Jersey, or you're able to go back and reestablish a pipeline in Florida like we saw their coaches have there in the past, it could work. That would probably be the one I would go for. I think I would take West Virginia if I had those three on the docket.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's what I would do. I mean, UNC to me, I would absolutely love the opportunity to be. They should have guys knocking down their door because they've got potential. And the thing is that they're a brand. Even though football wise, they're in no way.
No, it's a national, but
it's a brand name. So in the new. Okay, so say it came down to North Carolina at SMU, right, and getting that thing, North Carolina's probably going to get that.
Yeah.
Right? There's more North Carolina. It's not fair, but none of this is fair.
No.
Or especially when it comes to maybe getting more than one team in the playoff.
They have some more cachet. Yeah, I got you.
Have some more cachet. North Carolina, man, again, Michael, he didn't play football, but Michael Jordan went there.
Yeah.
All right? You are going to see, you'll see Michael Jordan at a football game there. Mm-hmm. You won't see him. You won't see him at another school. He's not going to Clemson.
No.
I would use that. Hey, the greatest professional athlete in the history of the world went to school right here.
Don't they give I feel like they have a wall in there of the Jordan shoes, and the athletes can have their pit. Yeah. That's something.
Use it.
Yeah.
Find somebody who can use it. North Carolina, maybe I need to do a top 5 of sleeping giant, not working up to their potential jobs, A&M,
Arizona
not
State.
hitting their potential, Arizona State.
Which they're starting to.
North Carolina, all these, UCLA, could be.
Yeah.
They don't, their athletic situation is weird, but, that could be way bigger
good
than
area
it is.
to go. Yeah.
It could be way bigger than it is. I think they're also hindered by the fact that they don't play close to campus.
Definitely.
Yeah.
USC, that's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah. And USC is a private school, so it's a little bit different. But Miami could be kind of a sleeping giant, but they're still a private school, so you're kind of limited on the same scale of what some state schools can do. But Arizona State, North Carolina, A&M should all be way better in football.
They should.
Should all be way better in football. And I'm sure there's some other schools I'm leaving out here that have that kind of cachet that they're not really cashing in on. Auburn's one of them, right? Auburn's one of them.
Nebraska.
Nebraska's but they have. The poster child. These are schools that never have.
That never have? Okay.
That never really have. So, who's sitting out there on a big mountain of potential that they just have not
have
not cashed in on. So